we're turning our attention back to Camogie, and I'm delighted to say we're joined by Kilkenny legend Ann Downey to talk about the homecoming, really, of the victorious Kilkenny team at the weekend. And how are you getting on?
I'm very good. Thanks very much, Cher.
How was the homecoming? What kind of levels of celebration were there this weekend?
Yeah, it was brilliant. The celebrations on Sunday night went on into the early hours of the morning, and I think they went out the country yesterday for a quiet drink and came back to Langton's yesterday evening, and there was a ferocious crowd in Kilkenny last night. I mean, as long as I've been involved now, the night lent to, I suppose, no excuses for people not turning out. The last time we came home, 2019, it was raining and there was a poor crowd enough, but it was brilliant last night, and really, the girls deserved it. It's been a long time since I've seen such a crowd, to be honest, and the county council, hosted them on the steps of the courthouse, and barriers set up later on for the girls to come down the steps and meet all the young players and sign autographs and get photographs. So it's, stuff made of dreams now. It was really delighted for the girls, more than they deserved.
It's funny because the homecoming for Kerry was similarly feverish, and Owen went missing for a few days. But I follow a couple of hurlers, the Kilkenny hurlers on Instagram, and they were all there celebrating as well. And it just looked like the split season. One of the unintended consequences has been that the build-up wasn't great for the schools and the bunting before the football. That was one of the Michael Meehan's points. But the corollary of that in the aftermath is that kids can all stay up late because there's no school in the morning, so they get to go to the celebration, they hang out a bit more, and they're making memories that will last a lifetime.
Yeah, and there were so many kids there last night, and I heard Cian Kenny being interviewed on the local radio yesterday evening. A lot of the village guys down at the homecoming for the number of girls from the village that are on the panel. Met Owen Cody and Adrian Mullen on Sunday night in the hotel when we got back, and it is great. And I suppose there are club games going on at the moment here in Kilkenny, but the lads still turned out to support the girls, and I suppose that's what we've had all the years. Always had the support from the hurlers in Kilkenny, and I suppose for the girls themselves, it's just great to see the hurlers there in the flesh. That they get the recognitions that the hurlers are getting, and they're loving it and enjoying it. And I suppose that's what drives people on to stay playing camogie. And, for days like Sunday and for nights like last night, to know that they're appreciated, because it's the one fear that we always had when we were coming back, will there be anyone out to meet us? And you'd know the crowds that the hurlers would have been getting maybe the Monday night. Before, I often remember training in Nolan Park on a Monday evening when the Kilkenny hurlers would be coming home, and we could hear the crackers going off in town and the music going off, and we would be in Nolan Park, and we'd probably come home then the following week Monday, and we'd be wondering, well, will the crowds be out for us? And it's the one thing that you're worrying about. But last night, really, Kilkenny really showed their true colours and supported the girls, and just so delighted for them.
The split season obviously has been a topic of massive conversation, and this is kind of the first year that we've seen the benefits and the issues that might be there post-COVID, where there are crowds and it's kind of back to normal as it might be for a while. What's your instinct now about how that is working? Because there was definitely a concern that the camogie and the women's football were overshadowed up until the very end, where, for example, the Dublin footballers limped out of the women's football championship at the quarter-final stage to Donegal, and kind of not that big a deal made of it. There was a brilliant semi-final between Kilkenny and Galway in the camogie, and not as big a deal made out of it, maybe, considering they're two of the three best teams. And yet at the same time, as you say, there's this massive party for the homecoming where it's clear the attention is there. So what's your instinct about how well or otherwise it's worked?
I'm a traditionalist, to be honest. I would prefer really to see that the camogie goes back to September, and the same with the hurling. Even for the build-up in Kilkenny, for the girls, as you said, the lads were beaten in the All-Ireland, and the homecoming was on that Monday night, and the girls were after playing a brilliant game in Croke Park against Galway in the semi-final, and there wasn't that much hype really about it. Maybe that suited Kilkenny. There weren't so many young players on that panel, maybe it suits them that they weren't getting the attention that they could. But certainly for me, I just loved you know, the late evenings in August going to training and coming on up to September, you know, usually the second or it could be the third week in September, kids were gone back to school. And even after the All-Ireland, if you were lucky enough to win, you were visiting the schools, you know, with the cup. And for me, you know, I just think that players, in fairness, you know, need a little bit more time to prepare for an All-Ireland. 2 weeks is probably not enough if you had to have a serious injury. Certainly you weren't going to get the chance to recover. You know, a lot of the players are happy with it, I think, from what I can gather. They're happy, you know, I suppose that they're not in school and they haven't to go back to school maybe the Monday or the Tuesday after an All-Ireland. Certainly, Angela being involved, you know, always she'd have to get the Monday off after the All-Ireland. But I would prefer, to be honest, to see it go back to September. That's my opinion.
Like, is there an opportunity here for Camogie and for women's football to maybe use the month really that's been left behind by the men's game? That if you were going into Camogie semi-final weekend this weekend, for example, and maybe the women's semi-finals weekend just gone, you would have had a proper build-up to the last 4 teams in both codes right after the men's competition is done, and then August becomes almost like a mini festival of football for the women's game.
Yeah, I would think that would be a great idea. You know, and you go back even to the hurling and the football finals have been played. The weekend after then, the lads have started their club championship here in Kilkenny, as have, I think, I saw Limerick were playing, Kerry were playing football the week after they won their All-Ireland. Kilkenny were lucky enough, we had no club games on at the weekend. The GAA board, you know, didn't have... they had the games on Friday night and had the games on Saturday, which was great. But, you know, to give the girls the opportunity, both in the Camogie and the football, to give them to that month, as you say, to have the build-up, to let's enjoy the celebrations, be it the Limericks or the Kerrys that won the football. Let's enjoy that for the few weeks after the August All-Irelands, and have that nice build-up for the girls. Both in the football, you know, give them the 3 weeks beforehand, you know, to especially the week after a semi-final, you know, to get themselves right, to do their press. I mean, Kilkenny won on the Sunday. They have to have the press conference on the Tuesday to try and get that out of the way so that Brian and the lads could go back on Thursday and try and do something with the girls. And you only have Thursday and you only have Saturday or Sunday. And then you're into the week of before the All-Ireland. And what can you do then? Not an awful lot. You know, it was just too rushed for my mind. And even, you know, given the hurlers, you know, they didn't have a chance really, I suppose, to put in their order for their usual customary suits for the weekend. I mean, it was just too tight, to be honest. And again, wouldn't the hurlers love to have a little bit extra time to get ready for an All-Ireland? I mean, Brian Cody said it after, you know, that they won Leinster. It gave them the opportunity, you know, to have that extra few weeks to get the lads right. And that's valuable time, you know, because you can't do an awful lot. Certainly, I know Brian couldn't do an awful lot the first week after the semi-final. So why not leave August, as you have suggested, to the hurlers and to the Camogie players? But of course, or the ladies' football and the Camogie. I'd love to see the whole thing joined up together. I'd love to see Camogie All-Ireland and the hurling All-Ireland on the one day. Will we ever get that in my lifetime, you know, but we're heading towards there.
Well, it would certainly give, because there is a school of argument that says that the inter-county game has disappeared and we're handing over the coverage to other sports. It's not entirely true, because there's loads of intrigue about managers and actually some of the club games, and now TG Carr have come up with the innovation at the weekend about miking up the referees, and everybody's still talking about GAA. But actually what would work is if the Camogie and women's football took over that period of time, and so there's no sense of handing over to other sports. It's just actually the women are getting it now, which that should surely quell those arguments about, well, we're handing the agenda to rugby and football. It's like we're not. We're taking the agenda, but we're just making sure that the women's game is getting its just desserts.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, they were talking about playing the All-Irelands in July to give the club players a chance, you know, so that the club players can play hurling and football, you know, in the good season. But, you know, from what I'm seeing here in Kilkenny, a lot of the youngsters are gone away travelling. Some of the clubs here in Kilkenny at the weekend had to still play without some of their players because they have gone away anyway. And, you know, we're still not going to have an early championship here in Kilkenny. It's still going to be probably October or November before the county final is played. But certainly, you know, you would have to have a coming together of the ladies' football and camogie, and to agree, you know, that they can work together, have August, as you have suggested, maybe for those semi-finals and an All-Ireland, be it even if it was the end of August. And as you said, you know, it would keep the interest there for the spectators. You know, what have we now? We're finished. As you said, TG Cahir hopefully will be playing some club games, and that's what we'll be looking forward to tuning into.
One last question for you. Who's your player of the year? That's one of the few things that we don't know yet.
Well, I'm going to keep those cards close to my chest because I'm actually on the All-Star
committee.
Right,
okay. Fair enough.
So we will have to have a meeting and suggest it. If I had my way, I'd probably be picking 15 Kilkenny players. But, you know, there's some great players over the season. You know, Beth Carton comes to mind straight away from Waterford. She had a brilliant year. You know, Hannah Looney had a great day on Sunday. Had missed a lot of the championship, but had been there for the semi-final. Miriam Welch, Denise Gall from Kilkenny, you know, Katie Nolan, Fiona, Katrina Mackey, you know, was brilliant on Sunday as well. So there's so many. I haven't even mentioned the Galway player yet. So we'll have a discussion. I have my own ideas, but at the moment, Ger, I'm not at liberty to,
fair enough.
to tell you what's in my mind. Yeah.